Thank you for joining us on the Cryptid Paranormal Podcast. We're here with our friend Jay, who's here tonight to talk about his interest in cryptozoology and his experiences up in the Adirondacks of New York State. Please welcome Jay. Jay, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. It's an honor.
Thank you. So it's an honor to have you. So now you're located up in the Adirondacks of New York.
Sure am. Yep. And I've been here my whole life, except for 4 years ago, my wife and I lived in North Carolina for a couple of years. So aside from that, I've lived up here all my life. Yeah. Grew up in the woods and chasing things around the woods, and yeah, it was a great childhood up here. You know, there's not a lot. The Adirondacks are huge, so it's a big playground for kids. Anyone, actually.
So for people who aren't familiar with the Adirondacks, can you kind of give us an idea of how big it really is?
Yes, I will. It is 6.2 million acres. Okay. Now, if to put that into perspective, that's bigger than Yellowstone, Yosemite, Glacier National, Everglades National Park. So it's bigger than those 4 national parks put together. So it's pretty big.
That's insane. And you yourself are on 250 acres, roughly?
Yes. 250, yeah. And then my other people in my family own different other plots of land. You know, we come from a logging background, like I said earlier. You know, and they gave me a chance to grow up in the woods. You know, and as far as the whole Sasquatch research thing goes, as far back as I can remember, from 7, 8 years old, I've always been obsessed with Bigfoot, the Yeti, Nessie. You know, my mother, when I was about 7, she bought me a book. It was called Mysteries of the 21st Century, or the Unexplained Mysteries of the 20th Century. I'm just thinking we're still in this generation. But anyway, yeah, and I was flipping through the pages, and my little self gets to the page where it shows Patty in the Patterson-Gimlin film. And from that point on, I was hooked, man. I was hooked, line, and sinker. I was obsessed. And it grew from there, man. I went away. I'm a retired mixed martial artist. Fought for 15 years. Traveled the world fighting. Same time, after my second sighting in 2007, that's when I really got into the research. I'll get back to that later. So I'll go back. My first official sighting was in 2001, and it was on the property I'm living on now. It was muzzleloader season, and I wanted to harvest. There's a nice 10-pointer down there that I'd been watching, and I wanted to harvest the animal. And I got in my tree stand and sat there a couple hours, and nothing. It was just quiet, no movement. You could tell it was one of those days where you weren't going to see any deer, So, but there was a weird silence about just a weird silence about it, weird aura. I got down out of the tree stand and started walking back. Now it's about a mile. My truck was parked about 1.5 miles down a logging road where I could pull in, back out, and hit the main road and go home. So it was 1.5 miles walk back. I started walking back, and I got to, my father had an old log skidder. Okay, like I'm talking like from the 50s, man. It was quite the classic. Hadn't been used in years, So I look, I'm about 40 feet away from the skidder, and I see a head pop out from behind the front end of the skidder, and it looked ovalish and roundish on top, and it looked like a human head, but it had bright amber eyes. And I'm like thinking to myself, well, what is this? I can identify just about anything out here in the woods. What is this? So the head disappeared. So I got a little bit closer, and I got right across from the log skidder, okay? And this thing sticks its head back out. This time it sticks its arm out, which would have been its left arm, and I could see all 5 fingers. And at that point, I was like, okay, what am I looking at here? It still hadn't kicked in yet what I was actually looking at. So it goes back behind the skidder, and the skidder's probably 15 feet long, okay? Now, there's logs laying horizontally to me, 2 of them, one here, and they were going this way, okay, away and towards me. And the front end of the skidder was probably 15 feet away from that first log. All of a sudden, this thing leaps out, okay, from behind that skidder, which was at least a 15-foot leap, okay. It hits the first log, and you know how most humans, when we jump, we duck down, we swing our arms, and we try to, and you know, we hoist ourselves, you know, when we jump.
Yeah, get some motion going. Yeah.
Exactly. So this thing hits the log, and I'm telling you right now, it did none of the such. The best way I can describe it, the athleticism this thing had was unbelievable. It propelled itself off the front half of its foot. As soon as it hit that, it just propelled, bang, hit the top of the log, and it was gone. Flew to the next log, did the same thing, boom, another 15 feet, gets in front of a tree, and now it's standing there just looking at me, kind of waving its head, that classic bob, back and forth. And I'm like, what am I looking at? Did someone's orangutan get loose or something? Because it did have like an auburnish coat, like an auburnish brown coat. And I'm thinking, you know, someone's grade 8 lost, you know, and then it hit me. Is this really what I think I'm looking at? There was no hair on the face. It was a young one. It was about 4'11", 5 foot, and probably about 200 pounds, which, you know, when I tell people that, they always say, well, that's not that big. Well, for 4'11", 5 foot, 200 pounds is jacked.
That's pretty big.
It was jacked. The thing could have torn me to pieces if it had so wanted to. So I was starting to get a little nervous. So I just want everyone out there to know I'm not pro-kill with these things, unless you have to defend yourself. You have a right to go in safe. You have a right to come out safe. But at the same time, I'm not pro-kill just to kill one of these things. You know. So, but anyway, I did raise my muzzleloader, and I had it lit up at the time too. I wanted to get a better look at get a better look through the scope at this creature. And so as soon as I started to raise my muzzleloader, this thing twisted its hips and jumped back behind that big tree, and it was gone. So I don't know if it did the classic Sasquatch hit the belly thing and just lay there, or if it found an angle that I couldn't see it run at, which would have been pretty impressive. Because you'd think that when I went behind that tree that it was standing in front of, I would have been able to see it run. You know what I mean? So it's quite interesting, and I realized that I went home, and I wasn't married to my current wife at the time, but I was living with another woman, and she said, "What's wrong? Your face is white as a ghost." I'm like, "I think I just saw a Sasquatch." No, she said, "You're crazy." And that's it. That's how it started, my friend. You're crazies and you're nuts, and but yeah, after that kind of freaked me out, you know. I did go back in the woods reluctantly after that because I wasn't going to let that ruin my hunting, but I always made sure I carried more than just a muzzleloader. So, right, yeah. In 2007, I had my second encounter. This was the scary one.
So let's back up to this first one real quick, if I may.
So yeah, go ahead.
How far out in the woods were you? Where was the skid loader at? Was this by your house? Is your house set far back from the street? How far out are we talking?
The house was not built on the property then. It was bare woods, just nothing but woods. We hadn't cleared it yet for the house, for the cabin or anything. So I was from my tree stand to my truck there's a logging road leading back to there's a pond, okay, like it's natural artesian spring, which is going to come into play in the next story. That's about 1.5 miles back. The tree stand's probably 60 yards past that. So that's when, and the log skidder, that was, you know, about 80 feet from the truck. So they were pretty close to it was pretty close to my vehicle. And, you know, I often wonder to this day, was Mama close? You know, was I in any danger? You know, yeah, you see a young one. Usually when you see a young one like that small, there's are close. Definitely.
Yeah, and it's normal to focus on what you're seeing and not necessarily you almost tunnel vision, I feel like, in these situations where you don't necessarily notice what's around you. Might have been very obvious, but you're so focused because you're seeing this thing and you're like, what the hell's going on, right?
What's going on? Yeah. Just absolutely
So,
crazy.
and you're surrounded by hundreds of acres on each side, right? So there's literally
Yeah.
nothing out there.
We have no neighbors on our road, and we have one neighbor, and they're at the all the way at the other end of the road, where we are off a main highway, and it's in the it's in the boonies. We're about, like I said, if I wanted to, I could walk to Canada from the back of my property. That gives you an idea how
And,
far north we are.
and the Canadian side is pretty much wilderness as well. Is that right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yep, yeah.
So it really is the perfect habitat then for something like this to exist and go
It
unseen
is.
without human eyes, because we're
It,
not there, right? There's no one around.
absolutely, absolutely. Like I said, there's like lots of reasons for them to be there. There's lots of deer. There's that artesian spring, that fresh water all the time. That's gonna draw them in, not only them in, but it's gonna draw the deer in that they can prey on and get a drink of water at the same time. Hey, you got it made then, don't you?
All you can eat
So
buffet.
you eat buffet dinner, yeah, man. Yeah. So yeah, do you want me to move on to the second encounter?
Oh, yeah, by all means, please.
All right. So hunting season again, rifle season, and I wanted to go down and fix my tree stand. The stairs on my tree stand had rotted over the years, and they needed to be fixed. It was a nice day out. I went down there. I got down there about 2 o'clock, 2 p.m., and I started to fix the tree stand, and it took me about an hour hour and a half. So I got up and watched, and I sat there a while. And something that creepy, I got that creepy feeling again, man. Like something was watching me, or there was something else, something behind me, or something was somewhere, and I couldn't put my finger on it. And all of a sudden, I hear a deep, dark beller, like a moan, and it went right through me. Like it crossed between a howl, a guttural growl, and like a beller all at the same time. And I said, okay, it's probably time to get out of here. So I, not knowing what it was, I had no clue what it was. Not even after that, having that encounter in 2001, did I put it together. That's what it could have been. I had no idea. Anyway, I threw my rifle on my shoulder. I climbed down the tree stand. I start walking back on the logging road. I go around the bend of the pond, and as I come around to the front of the end of the pond to pick up the rest of the logging road, I see what looks like a tree 5 feet off shore in the pond. So I'm saying to myself, well, there's hasn't been a tree there the past 25 years. I mean, what's going on? And I'm about 40 feet away, and at this point, the tree turned and she looked at me. And yes, I say she. It was a female Sasquatch, and she had breasts. Um, they did hang low, not like Patty's did, but they did hang low. Her head was not fully conical, but it was in between something like a man and a gorilla head. You know what I mean? Not conical, but not round. Somewhere in the middle. Um, flattened nose, wide nostrils, wide mouth. Her mouth was so wide, man. This is an exaggeration, but the way I was thinking about it at the time was, man, her mouth is so wide, she could open up her mouth like a Pez dispenser and bite my head off if she wanted to. That's the only thing I was thinking about. That wide mouth, man. What she could have done with that wide mouth. My God. Anyway, just a massive creature. The most impressive part about her was her legs, and her hip area. Just solid rock, just muscle, and their arms like tree trunks. She had to have been 3.5 feet wide, and from back to front, I would say 2.5, 3 feet.
Wow.
Just massive. And I'd say I've said this for years, since as long as I've been doing this past 20 years. I think people underestimate the weight of these creatures. I'm gonna go off topic for a second. Put it this way: have you ever heard of the guy Robert Wadlow? He was the tallest man ever. He was in the Guinness Book.
Yes.
Okay, he was 8'11", right? And he was 500 pounds. Take an 8'11" Sasquatch. He's going to weigh a little more than 500 pounds if you put him next to that, and if you compare the two of them. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So I think people underestimate their weight. And she had to have been all of 700 pounds. Just gargantuan. just massive. So we're faced off and we're looking at each other, and I'm getting nervous, and she's not giving me a not so happy look. But then she kind of opened her eyes a little bit, and I see her. I had my gun over my shoulder, and the barrel was sticking up. She moves her eyes over, and she sees that rifle barrel, and I said, "Oh God!" And she brought her eyes back, stared me back in the eyes again, and I swear to God, to you, man, the look she gave me. You ever seen the movie Tombstone where he says you're gonna pull that pistol or sit there and bleed?
Yeah.
It was like she said that, so I looked back at her and said, in just the eyes, I was trying to give her the eyes. I'm not going to give you a problem, and she kind of looked at me and same deal, I'm going to go my way. You go yours. She took a leap out of that water, back up on the bank, took 3 leaps and was gone. And we went back. I took 4 buddies back the next day because I knew she had left scuff marks. I saw her leave the first one when she took a leap. We went and measured it out. She went 63 feet in 3 leaps. That's 21 foot a leap. Average 21 foot a leap. That averages. Now, for a 700-pound creature to move like that, that's athletic.
I mean, imagine the strength to launch. How high would you say she jumped?
I'd say 10, 15. Without a doubt. You figure a cougar can jump 20, so I mean, this is just incredible. It was just incredible. I've never seen anything move like that. Never.
I'm just thinking the sheer strength of a creature that's that tall, weighing 700 pounds, jumping 21 feet, let alone 15 feet in the air, and still making it 21 feet. I mean, that's you know how much power that thing is walking around with.
Unreal, and that's why their hips are built like that. Because that's the first thing I noticed on her, to be honest with you, was those hips and the leg muscles. Just incredible.
It also kind of puts into perspective when sometimes you've talked to people as well, and they say, well, it was there 1 minute, gone the next, it disappeared.
Yep.
Well, Did it disappear, or did it jump 20 feet away and you just missed the jump because you looked away or you blinked and it just moves so fast? Because with that kind of strength,
I agree.
What we're expecting to look at is not going to be the level of speed they're going to be moving at,
Yeah, I agree, 100%. Yeah, I mean, you pick. People say, okay, we found one track. Where's the rest of them? Well, I've got a very easy explanation for that. Like you just said, you got an entity or individual, whatever we want to call them, that can jump 20 plus feet in one leap. Okay, so say they hop out of a tree, they leave a track, right? They take a bound 20 more feet, but you're not looking for that. You're not thinking to look for that track because you're looking in the wrong area because it's 20 feet in the other direction. I mean, that's not how you're going to explain it all the time, but I mean, I'm sure there's been screw ups because of that.
Oh, I completely agree. Yeah. If because you hear stories where people say, well, the tracks went for so many paces and then they just disappeared.
Yeah.
If that's how they're jumping, or if they're even traveling through trees, perhaps, depending on the age of the forest and the size of the trees where you're at.
Yeah.
With that kind of muscle strength, you're absolutely right. You could very well have a massive gap in footprints, but you may only see 2 or 3 sets at a time, and then another 20 some feet goes by.
Yeah.
And that's assuming that she's the average, for all we know, she's the run of the litter, and they could be jumping 30 feet,
Yeah. That's
the other way too. Yeah, it could go the other way too, but either way, I mean, that's a massive power.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. And after we measured that out, that incident ruined my hunting for about 3 to 4 years. I did not go back in the woods to hunt, and the only reason I was in the woods at all during that 4 years is to work. And that's it. I did not hunt down there again after dark. No way. I mean, over time it subsided. I mean, we live on this piece of property now, so I have to go back there, But they've pretty much gotten used to us now. They don't bother us. My wife has seen the alpha male of the group. He goes about 10'6", leaves 19-inch tracks. He's a beast. She saw him get this one, so she's gone on the 4-wheeler. This was in 2016. We're building our place down here. We're building the cabin we're in, and she took off on the 4-wheeler, which was cool. I think she was going to pick blueberries, a nice blueberry patch in the back, and she I heard it coming back, and this is about an hour later, and she was white as a ghost. I said, "You saw one, didn't you?" She goes, "It was unbelievable." I'm like, she said he didn't get aggressive. He just looked at me, turned around, and he walked away. So I'm like, you got to show me where. So I grabbed a tape measure real quick as we're leaving, and we get to the blueberry patch. I'm like, show me where you were, show me where he was. He was only about 7 feet away from her, but he was crouched down in the blueberry patch. And when she got there, he popped up. And she said he turned around and he walked under that tree limb right there. I said, perfect frame of reference then. I pulled the 4-wheel over to that tree branch, and I stood on top of the 4-wheeler and I yanked that up as high as I could. And to the bottom of the tree branch where he walked under was 10'6". She said he cleared it by about 2 inches, so that would have left him at about 10'3", 10'4". Yeah. Meaning she said they looked at each other for a few seconds and they walked away. And then, my mother's seen them. My sisters have seen them. My mother saw a black female with this was recently, this was a couple of years ago, off her back porch, they live near us. All the properties are connected, So my mother saw one, and there was a little baby that she had put up in a tree while she was eating vegetation.
Wow.
Yeah. So a lot of us in the family have seen them. Now, being a researcher, I do have a lot of other spots we research. Now, they're like a bunch of hippies down there on our lot. They don't bother us. They leave us alone. But don't get me wrong, I do have areas where you can almost feel the tension in the air. They're a little more aggressive. And that's that's what it was like in North Carolina as well when we lived down there. We were down there
in North Carolina.
What's that?
Did you have a sighting in North Carolina?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, we moved down there in 2019, and lo and behold, man, we had we lived in a little rural town, like tiny, and we were right on the edge of the town, and nothing but swamp after that. And I was like, yeah, there's we gotta get some sort of action back there, man. So my wife's a researcher too. So every night we would go back there. We were on a roll, man, finding tracks, nice tracks at the watering hole. We got a bunch of got some great casts out of the deal. Some great audio, mimicking coyotes, mimicking owls, mimicking different animals. Then we got one recording where you hear a big, which I believe is the alpha male of the group. He followed us home one night, actually. But anyway, he was beating on the side of a tree. And boom, boom, boom. Then you hear him go, roar! Then boom, boom, boom. And then he let out that moan again. And it's the coolest thing. So we get some really good audio. And then we did see one. We saw a lot of eye shine, a lot of other stuff aside from that, but we never actually got one to show itself except for one. And it was myself, my stepdaughter, and one of her friends. My stepdaughter, she's 21 years old. She's into this stuff too. So my wife didn't want to go. It's a big family affair for us. So my wife didn't want to go. So I said, Xandria, you want to go with stepdad down to the trestle? It's a train trestle, an old train trestle that no trains travel down anymore. And train tracks are a perfect means of easy travel for them. Very easy travel to get from point A to point B when you think about it, right?
Sure.
So
yeah.
We're sitting there. There's a brook, like a little stream separating the two sides, this side of the trestle and this side over here. We're underneath the trestle, and all of a sudden we hear bipedal footsteps coming out of the swamp. And it wasn't long. We saw eye shine. Dark red eye shine. And as it's coming closer, my stepdaughter says, "Dad, what is that?" I look up and there's a silver one, like not gray. I'm talking silver, and he's climbing up the side of the embankment to cross the road, to cross the trestle to get to the other side of the road. He's climbing up the embankment, and I lit him right up. I lit him right up, man, and he minded his own business. Turned, looked at us, and when I hit him with the spotlight, his eyes went from red to blue, which is the weirdest thing. I'd never seen anything like that in my life. But that's what happened. They went from red to blue, and I hit him with that particular light. And he was, like I said, he was silver. And the vegetation, we measured that the next day at 9 feet, or excuse me, 7.5 feet. He was 2 feet ahead, 2 feet when he was walking. He was 2 feet over that vegetation, which would have made him 9 feet, 9.5 feet. And he looked the ones I've seen up here. They look more like a cross between a ancient human and maybe a primate. They all look I want to stress they all look different. You know, they all look big time different from each other, even within the same type. I believe there's different. Oh, I believe even within their own type, they all look different. You know, any researcher knows that. But yeah, he was silver, and the ones up here look more like an ancient human or a Neanderthal, something like that, crossed with a primate of some sort. The one down there looked very, very apish, very gorilla-like, and he was a little bit built different. Like you could, the chest was more of a well, my sighting was with a female, so I can't compare it to another male. But I'm thinking, he was barrel chested. It was just massive, and just very, very impressive looking. He looked right at us, looked right in our eyes, and we lit him right up, and he turned his head and he kept on walking, which is weird because I've had some aggressive encounters in North Carolina, some really aggressive encounters. I was doing a live on Facebook one night, and just before I started the live, I was on the bank waiting for it to get dark. I was on the bank of the river, and all of a sudden I look up and there's a boulder coming my way, and it lands right directly in front of me in the water, and it hit so hard you could hear it crashing against the other rocks in the water. And then to my right comes another one, hits in the same exact spot. Boom. And they're notorious if they don't want you in the area, they'll throw a boulder with a quickness. And I was alone, which I should not have been alone. I recommend no one go out there alone. They do this. Don't do what I do what I say. So I said to myself, it's time to I got to get out of here. That's probably a sign for me to leave. So I got up and I started walking out. And at this point, the sun just seemed like it dropped faster than ever. I'm out there alone and the sun just goes down. I said, oh, great. And so I'm walking back and zigzagging through the woods. And by this point, I'm doing my live video on Facebook. And a bunch of people hop on. And my buddy Travis, who's one of my research partners, he says, Jeremiah, get the hell out of there now. I'm like, why? What's going on? He goes, dude, when you just turned your back, that big male just stuck his head out from behind that tree and he stared at you with a meanness. And I was like, okay, I will be leaving the area now. And when we would leave their areas, they would always pace us out. My wife and I got paced out by a big male one night. And I think it was that silver one because as we're walking, my wife likes to go black when we're out there, no light. Which I don't know what possessors are to do that, but it's not for me. But we're walking back down this trail, and I can hear him. I said, Stacy, we're being paced. She goes, I know, Jeremiah. I know he's there. And he was pacing us through the woods, and then when we got to where our backyard was going to start, I had my phone on the whole time. It was filming the ground, so it was filming the ground, okay? But when I picked it up, he was right in front of us, and I caught his eyes on camera as we're walking into our backyard, and he took off, went the other way.
So why do you think that they were being aggressive down there?
I think that's their nature. I've taken a lot of different reports. I mean, I think okay. Let me rewind that a little bit. They might have gotten aggressive with me. Then the times I was gotten aggressive with, which was quite a few times. I might have been interrupting hunts. You know, that's a good way to get escorted out of an area. Is interrupt a hunt. They'll escort you out real quick. That happened to me up here too in New York, where I got escorted out by two because I interrupted a hunt. And they flanked me and everything, got behind me and everything. It was scary, man. It was really scary. But yeah, they asked. I think it's because they didn't want us there. Or we interrupted a hunt. If they don't want you in the area, they're gonna let you know real quick. They'll get aggressive. Yeah, I mean,
it's interesting because if they wanted to hurt you, you wouldn't
they
have stood
would.
a chance, right?
Not a chance. Not a chance. Even with the weapons I was carrying, I don't think what I had would have. I was carrying a 10 millimeter on my hip, and I don't think I would have put this thing down if I had to put it down and try. If I had to give it a try, I don't think it would have. It would have. I interviewed a gentleman who, not to get off topic, but just to give you a clue how tough these cryptids are. I have a guy I interviewed out of Texas who has a farm and it's infested with dogmen. Well, he shot one of them. Charged him one day, and Texas. Everyone carries their weapon. So he had his 10 millimeter on him, and this thing was charging him. He pulled his weapon out, got on one knee, and he shot, and he caught it right there. And all it did was go like this. It turned its head and turned right back around and looked at him like this. And he sees this thing from now on. It's got a scar up the side of its face, so he calls them penetrate the face. So who knows how thick the rest of their bones are? Their bones and their muscle mass. You know what I mean? Who knows? It's wild when you think about it.
To carry the weight that they carry, to jump how they jump, to move as fast as they move, their muscle has to be thick.
Absolutely.
And we know, primates, for example, often have thicker skin than we do. Not to say that they're bulletproof, but it is hard by our comparison, just the nature of how they've evolved. But if these things are in our general primate human family, it stands to reason they would have extremely thick skin as well.
Absolutely. And look at animals. Look at the big game animals they hunt in Africa, like the Cape buffalo and the lion. Look at the calibers they need to penetrate through that skin and that bone and that tissue. I mean, those are some big rifle rounds,
Yeah.
So if these things have skin like that, I tell you that 10 millimeter I had wasn't going to put them down if I needed it to. But like you said, if they wanted to hurt us, they would have. They had plenty of chances.
I've talked to a lot of people who have had encounters, and sometimes they've been frightening. However, I've never talked to anyone that's actually been hurt by one. They've been scared by one, terrified even.
Yes.
But everyone has the same description that they're so powerful, it's so strong, it moves so quickly.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, if they wanted to hurt us, I think they would. Which is
very
personally, I think they're a lot smarter than sometimes people give them credit for, because I think it's a conscious decision not to harm us.
Absolutely. And they're masters of their environment. So if they wanted to ambush you, they're gonna ambush you. They're gonna flank you. They're gonna do whatever they want.
Well, and I've used this example before, but if you drop a gorilla in New York City, it's not going to last very long, right? Just like if you drop us in the Congo, we're not going to last very long.
Right.
We're in their backyard. This is their home. This is their environment. This is their city. I mean, they're the experts.
Yeah.
I'm curious though, the ones in New York versus the ones in North Carolina. Did you ever see the ones in New York eyes glow?
Oh yeah. The amberish red to a dark red. Yeah.
Would you say it's the same kind of glow the ones in North Carolina had, or is it a different kind of shade, or same?
It's the same glow, man. And it's almost like it illuminates outward too. It's so strong. But as far as the ones down south and up here, same type of deal. And people, I'm gonna catch a lot of crap for this next thing I say. But there's a few of us out there that have a theory that I know they're not jellyfish and they can't bioluminate, but I've personally seen them coming out of the swamp with me shining no light on them and seeing eyes that shine, deep shining eyes. Whether it was from the moonlight or whether they can have some way of doing it themselves, I don't know, but I have seen it. I have seen it. Do I have an explanation for it like anything else in the subject? No. No. I've got theories, but no explanations.
So what do you think they are?
That's the golden question, isn't it? I truly don't know.
Do you think they're
I think they're a species all on their own. Not any kind of not a human, not an ape, but I think there's something in their own.
do you think that they're are they an earth-based species? Sometimes people think that they're supernatural, for example, or they're an alien species. Do you think that they are from
I
around
think
here?
I think they've been here all along. Do I think they have? Do I think they have abilities that we can't comprehend? Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
Do you think that it would be considered supernatural by our standards?
By our standards, sure, sure. I don't see why not. That's some of the things. Some of the things I've heard interviewing people with the telepathy and that, and people. These are people I've known for 15 plus years that have never lied to me and would never lie to me. That claim to have these relationships with these things and communicate with them mentally. You know, or the orbs. Now I've experienced this. Okay, these orbs that are associated with these cryptids. My wife and I, man, when we'd have activity, like whether it was vocals, eye shine, whatever, hearing them pace us out, there was always either before the encounter or after the encounter, there would be either orbs in the sky that would follow us out as well, or something in the sky like a craft. I know that sounds crazy as well, but I think they're all interconnected somehow. Do I think Sasquatch is an alien? No, I don't think so. But
No,
I
but
think they're interconnected.
you said you've seen crafts around Sasquatches.
That's correct. Yeah, I've never seen one drop out of a craft or get sucked up by a craft, but I've seen after activity, we've noticed things in the sky, mostly orbs, sometimes crafts.
What do the
And I've got
crafts look
all. They're usually the triangular shaped ones with the three light here, light there. And I've got or the blue. What we saw mostly was the orbs, blue orbs, orange orbs. I've got crazy videos of orbs I could send you. My wife
like?
communicating with one, it would get smaller. Then when she communicate with it, it would get big. Then it would get small again, big, then small again. I can send you that after we get off.
Oh, please
Yeah,
do.
yeah, it's pretty interesting.
So do, do
Pretty
you do you
interesting.
think UFOs were they watching you or were they watching them?
Good question. I don't know. I don't know. I guess
We
it's a
talked about
possibility.
a couple minutes before the show that there seems to be a lot of overlapping sightings between
Oh, there
UFOs,
is.
not just
There is.
Sasquatch, Dogman, and
Maybe
other
they
cryptids
are.
as well.
Yeah, maybe they are watching them. Maybe they are watching them. You know, it's like it's awful. It's an awful close correlation to be a coincidence, right? It's awful close of a
So when you
coincidence.
say orbs,
Yep.
are you talking about orbs in the sky or are they on the ground near where the Sasquatches were, near where you were, in between, or just kind of general vicinity?
We're at different spots. We've had them as close as 10 feet away from us, 15 feet in the air. We've had them as far out as 60 feet, 30 feet up in the air. The one I'm going to send you tonight after we get off, it's 3 minutes and 31 seconds long. That one, it started out closer to the ground, but then it started rising and rising and rising, and that followed us around the swamp for an hour. That particular orb, and that's my wife. But I got 3 minutes of on recorded. But as she's talking to it, the thing's getting bigger and smaller, bigger and smaller. That's intelligence. You know what I mean? If you're communicating with something, that seems like an answer to me.
Yeah, it seems
I
like
don't
it was
know.
trying to tell you something, or at least acknowledge that it
Right,
understood the
right,
attempt to communicate. So,
right.
did you see the orbs at the same time as the Sasquatch, or was these two separate occasions, or all the above?
All the above. All the above. After we saw that gray one that night, we saw a bunch of blue orbs came and they spun around for a few seconds and they took off.
And
So
have you seen orbs both in the Carolinas and in New York?
yes, we can sit right in our bedroom window at night. My wife woke me up at 4 a.m. last week, and she said, "Jeremiah, look out the window." And I looked, and lo and behold, in the tree, floating in the tree line, is a big basketball-sized red orb. So we can sit there and watch them right out of the back window. I've got a picture of a Sasquatch I took from my bedroom window. I'll send you that too.
Please do.
Yeah, I
So,
didn't get out. I didn't get out there to get a closer look at him, but I got him. I got him. I got a shot of him.
do you think the orb was watching you, or was it watching something else that was nearby?
I think it wanted to communicate with us or watch us. Just a feeling in the gut. Just a feeling.
What
Yeah.
do you think they want?
I don't know. It's made me think. It's made my brain go so many different directions. Like my wife and I have lost time. Out on these investigations. Like wound up way miles away from where we started, where we had no plans on and going whatsoever. We've lost time, lost direction. It's just crazy, and that you hear other researchers and other people talk about that too. The connection of lost time with these cryptids as well. You know, it's very weird, but like you said, I think it's all interconnected. It's got
Well,
to be.
in a lot of UFO, UAP encounters as well, people have lost time and things like that. So it's
Yes.
interesting. Again, it's would certainly be a strange coincidence because to me, losing time is a hard thing to do, especially for us as humans. We're naturally very attuned to what's going on, and
Right.
as the day progresses, the sun moves across the sky, the temperature changes. There's all sorts of indicators. So all of a sudden,
Right.
when you lose a chunk of time, I think we as humans we feel that very, very quickly. It's an instant. Something's
Yes.
not right. What happens?
Exactly. Exactly. And we do. I have had two dogman encounters as well. If you like to hear about those.
Oh, please.
Okay, 2016. My wife and I are coming back from dinner at my parents, and I figured out the pattern now. The Sasquatch are here. They hang out here from about April to November, then they leave. Do I know where they go? No. They do go somewhere though, and then that's when the dogmen show up. We've seen them. They've peeked in our windows. There's something about them that's very arrogant, very smug, and just not a general good feeling around them whatsoever. I went back. It was spring of 2021, and I was going to go turkey hunting. So I walked back. I'm on the logging road again, that famous logging road. And I sat for a while, and there were nothing, no turkeys, nothing. So I decided to walk back, and I got a shot of him too on the camera. I felt like something from my left hand side was watching me. So I turn and I look about 80 feet into the woods, and there this thing is standing between two trees, staring at me. It's got a dead deer. It's got its arms wrapped around a dead deer, and you can see the deer. I could see the deer's bowels and guts coming out onto the ground. Now, it always makes me wonder, if that thing hadn't had that deer, would I have been lunch? It's just something I've always thought about. And that goes to show, I will say as far as Sasquatch and Dogmen go, they both know what guns are, both of them. So that could either really tick them off or discourage them from doing something bad to you. But I got a picture of that dogman with arms wrapped around a deer. I will send you that as well.
Please.
It's very interesting. Very interesting. He sat there and he stared at, I don't know, I say he, but it could have been a female, I don't know. Sat there and he stared at me, and I walked backwards with that gun. I'm like, ready to go if I had to rock and roll, you know. And he just held on to his deer and watched me like this walk out. And I got in my truck and I was gone. But before that, back in 2016, I jumped the story. I went ahead of story for some reason. 2016, my wife and I were coming back from my parents. We ate dinner there, okay? And they live about 3 miles from us, my parents. And we turned down our road, and as we're about 50 feet from our driveway, I said, Stacy, slow down. You're going to hit that guy in the side of the road. My wife's got kind of a lead foot. Anyway, she stopped. She goes, that's no person, Jeremiah. And I look, and there's this thing standing there on the side of the road. It looked like it was built like an NBA basketball player, had a long canine snout, 2 ears that stood up. It did not have a tail. To this day, I will stick to that till the day I die. It did not have a tail, and the legs were not shaped backwards like a dog's. They were more like a squatch's. This thing turned, looked at us for a few seconds, then it got down on all fours and it ran onto our property and took off. So that was our first experience with one of them. It was quite disturbing.
So,
Very.
size-wise, compared to a Sasquatch, would you
Oh,
say
no
the dog man
comparison.
is large? No,
Oh, they're large, but they're nothing like a Squatch.
nothing like a
They don't
Squatch.
they don't have the muscle mass. They average about 7, maybe 7.5 feet. Where you get big Squatch and you get well above 10. You know what I mean? And tip the scales at over 1,500 pounds. Which, you know, the biggest dog man that we hear, my partner and I hear about, you know, he's 700 pounds. You know what I mean? Say 7 foot, 700 pounds, which is still massive. But this one, like, it's still massive. It's still going to tear you to shreds. But
Oh
this is the
yeah.
one, like I said, the one that we saw was a little bit taller. I would have leaned more towards 8 feet, but he was skinnier, built like a pro basketball player. It was real weird. But you could see the claws. You know, you could see the snout. You could see the like saliva dripping from its mouth. He was right there in front of the car, looking at us, right in the windshield. And he took off and got on all fours and took off onto the other side.
So,
Yep.
do you think that they interact with Sasquatch and the orbs and things like that, or are they just an independent, whole different
Yeah.
scenario?
Here's the thing. I've interviewed lots of people about me, and people I've interviewed on their properties and whatever, they see dogmen with Sasquatches, but it's mostly in the southeastern U.S. Now up here, they don't seem to play too well together. They do not seem to play well together because when the Sasquatches leave, the dogmen come in. When the Sasquatch come back, the dogmen leave. So we deal with them in different seasons. I've never seen a dogman with a Sasquatch or vice versa.
It's
Never.
interesting. It almost sounds like they're following some kind of migratory pattern.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah, yeah. I've thought about that, but I thought about that as well as there's a lot of caves in the Adirondacks. Maybe they do utilize those caves. Maybe they do, you know. But they are going somewhere.
Yeah, I've been a big believer that there's cave systems that they access that we're simply not aware of. I think that that's part of how they go undetected for so long.
I
Although, but
agree.
in the Adirondacks, with over 6 million acres, I mean, you're not gonna
Yeah,
encounter anybody anyways.
you're not going to see one unless they want you to see him. That's my opinion.
Have you seen signs, for example, upside down trees or
Yes.
trees that are bent?
Yeah, I've seen trees that are ripped out of the ground by the roots and jammed back in upside down. Huge X's. We've got huge X's all over the property. And these trees were yanked out from the roots. They weren't broken. They were yanked out from the roots, placed in X's. Yeah, we've seen all sorts of stuff like that. Bent, um, broken trees, pointing in one direction, 3 or 4 of them in a row. I think that's a communication thing, to be honest with you. And I think the X's might be to keep us out. Some of them might be to keep us out, but I think part of that, the structure building and all that, and the bent sticks and the arches and all that, I think that's a communication thing with one another, saying, if another group comes in and wants to pass through, they can read those markers and say, oh, the moose are this way, or the white-tailed deer are that way, or whatever, So we've got them all over the property, all over the property. It's crazy.
What's the biggest tree that you've seen them tear out and turn upside down? I asked because with coming from a logging background, you know a lot about trees and how big they are and what it takes to actually pull one from the ground.
Oh, you're not a human. I mean, human male isn't going to do it. No way. 10 men couldn't do it. 10 men couldn't do it. I've seen tree, two, maybe 10 inches in diameter. Yep. About 10 inches and ripped right out of the ground. And then I was on a case in Pennsylvania where we were it was the Pennsylvania New York state line. This lady was having a problem with some aggressive Sasquatch. Turns out she'd been feeding them. That's why, and she was getting ready to move and she slacked off on feeding them and they got a little upset. That's why I don't feed them. So I don't think it's really fair to the entity or the animal or whatever we want to call them. They're going to get used to being fed like that, and then when they get cut off, it's cold turkey, man, and they aren't going to be happy about it. But down on her property, there was actually a tree that had been yanked out from the roots, turned upside down, jammed back in, and the parts of the roots have been tied together in knots, which is just blows my mind.
How big are these root clusters? How hard would it be? Could a human tie them together? If
Not a
say I
chance.
came across this, no chance.
No chance. No way. No. No. And then with the arches they make, snow does make a lot of those arches, and I always look for a natural reason first. I always try to explain other than a cryptid, and but what they'll do is they'll jam when they do arch a tree, they'll jam it under a bunch of the end under a bunch of rocks, or put another log over the top of the bottom of it so it stays in place. So that's what you look for. You look for something holding the edge down. That's how you can tell it's legit instead of one that just was done by snow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So where do you think that they live? Are they living in the caves up there? Are they just sleeping under the stars? Are they making camps? Do you think they make nests?
Yeah, I think all the above. In the summertime, all the above. They move around the family properties and whatnot. Even the ones that the couple of the spots I have that are not family properties. I was telling you earlier, aggressive, but they even take off from that time period of year, and they're gone too. So they go somewhere as well. So I think during that time of year, they, like you said, they may utilize these caves. But I think when they're here for the summer and the fall, I think they're probably sleeping under the stars or in the trees. They make nests in the trees. Yep. Yep, they do.
Have you ever seen any kind of nest or anything on your property
Oh
that you
yeah.
would think is?
Oh sure. We've gone the ground and in the trees. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Can you describe it? How big are they? How tall, wide, that kind of thing?
Yeah, sure. They do it. They kind of flatten. They kind of flatten it out, and they weave the branches in and out of one another to make a solid platform. Because let's face it, they are kind of heavy. So they're weaving big branches together. They'll bring branches up from the ground, weave them together, until they get a nice little arch of a nest going. Kind of what they look like is kind of a supersized bald eagle's nest. Like a bald eagle's nest, on steroids. That's what comes to mind when I think of them. Yeah.
do dogmen do something similar, or is there no trace of them at all?
I don't know enough about them to be on yet. I started getting into the Dogman thing about 4 years ago. My partner I do my show with, he's head of the International Dogman Project, Nick Valenti. He'd be good for you to have on too. He knows his stuff. Um, he's one that started teaching me about Dogman and whatnot. I was just a strict Squatch guy before I hooked up with him, but I'm glad I got into the Dogman side of it too because it's very interesting. Very interesting. Even though I don't think they're too happy of a creature, but it's an interesting topic.
Because you said when you saw one yourself that it gave you kind of like something in the pit of your stomach is wrong.
Yes. Yep. Yep. I can tell there's something wrong. Yeah. And that's how it always seems to work out. If they're in the area, and they want one thing, and if you bring a woman with you and she's on her time of the month, you're going to get a lot more action than you would normally.
Interesting.
Yeah. When you think about it, though, it makes sense, right? I mean, look at the animal kingdom.
Yeah. Yeah. Perhaps the smell is what attracts them.
Right. Right. And I have noticed that, and I have talked about that with other researchers as well, and I have experienced it myself, and it's just true.
Has your wife or any other family members encountered a dogman on your property, or theirs,
No,
or anywhere in that area? No.
the only one my wife has seen. No other. The only other person in the family that has seen one is my cousin. Saw one behind her house, a big black one winter, and my wife saw that one with me in the car that night that we almost hit. So we're the only ones that have seen the dogman, the three of us. And this one, the one we saw that night, was dark brown.
Unfortunately, I guess it's debatable. I've always wanted to have an encounter with one, but
Yeah,
I've talked to quite a few people that have seen dogmen, and everyone says the same thing. It's a very much different experience than what I hear from someone who sees a Sasquatch. Everyone seems instantly. People seem scared when they see a Sasquatch. That's often a first reaction, but then when they reflect back on it, they don't ever talk about feeling like they were in harm. It was more of a confusion and disorientation.
Confusion. Yeah,
What's happening? What is this thing? Kind of. Whereas a dog man, people tend to say that they're aggressive. They feel threatened. The hair on the back of their neck stands up. It seems to be a common theme. And we've had a few sightings here in Ohio, not too many, but however, Michigan has quite a bit. And when I've talked to people up there who have seen them in the UP and things like that, so some of them say they would be fine never going into the woods again, knowing those things are out there because it terrified them that much. There was some kind of a feeling, and they tend to be more aggressive. It seems like people have talked about them approaching more. Even if they retreat, typically the Sasquatches don't seem to follow when you retreat. But with dogman scenarios, people seem to say that no, it was kind of pursuing me, and I think if it had the chance, it would have killed me.
Yeah, I think that's what I said about that one I saw. It had the deer in its arms. If I hadn't had my weapon and that thing hadn't had that deer, I feel like I would have been. I really do.
Did you notice anything about the dog man? You mentioned it didn't have a tail and the legs. Were there any other feature, like its facial features, anything that stood out?
And the one my wife and I saw, that was close to us in the car.
Yeah,
like I said, long snout, ears. It looked like a cross between a German Shepherd and a wolf on two legs on steroids, but built like a basketball player. Long arms, claws. Just a very, very well put together, perfect killing machine. It's the only way to put it.
What about? Did you get a look at its eyes?
Oh yeah, his eyes were blood red, bright red, bright red. Yeah.
Was it a glowing red, or was the pigment of the eye red, or was it all the above?
Glowing red.
Glowing red.
Yeah, glowing red. Now, if we
What
would
are
have
the
been closer, maybe I would have noticed something else. But from where we were, it was glowing red, almost projecting, almost very
what do you
weird.
think about the hypothesis that people say that dogmen aren't necessarily natural, but they were created in a laboratory or engineered in a laboratory, and there's military bases and things like that. Do you think that that's plausible that this thing would be designed to be the perfect predator soldier, perhaps?
Here's what I think. I think that they've been here naturally all along, like with the Sasquatch, because the Native Americans talked about them too from thousands of years back. But do I think the government may have snatched a couple over the years and ran experiments and maybe cloned a few and to do whatever they wanted to do with them? Absolutely. I think they've done the same thing with Sasquatch as well. I mean, people can call me a conspiracy theorist, but that's the reality to it. The government does all sorts of stuff that we don't know about, and that's one of them. Right? That's one of them. Yeah.
So with both of these creatures out there, why do you think that they avoid? Let me rephrase: do they avoid us, or are we just looking in the wrong places? Because a lot of us are actively out there looking for some of these things, trying to find proof, trying to get definitive evidence. But it
Yeah.
does seem it's hard. I mean, it's hard to find them. And you can't help
You
but
got
wonder: is there a reason why they're avoiding us, and how have we not proven by now? You know what I mean?
Well, I'll just say a couple things. If they don't, I've learned over my years as a researcher, if they don't want you to see them, you're not going to see them. You got to find a good spot. Find a spot. If you go to a spot and find some tracks or something, keep hitting that spot over and over. And say, even verbalize it. I've had people tell me verbalize stuff in the air. Verbalize, I'm not here to harm you. We're just here to learn. I know, people might think I'm crazy for that too, but whatever. I don't care. You eventually, when you're out there in the woods, people think you have to be out there walking around the woods all night, banging on trees and doing whoop calls. That's not the case. The best way to get a look at one is to, grab a bunch of your research partners, build a fire, sit around the fire, tell horror stories, and if they're in the area and want to check you out, they will come in and check you out. They will stay right outside of the fire. I've had it happen many times. And as
So,
soon as you step into their area, they know you're there.
do you think they're just as curious about us as we are with them?
I do. I think the younger ones are big time curious about us. Big time. Yeah, the juveniles, they are definitely curious about us. Whereas I think the females, they might be a little curious as well. But the big males, I don't think the big males feel very easy around men. It's just stuff I've gathered through interviewing people over the years and doing research, and just the way that one big one, that male, and interacted with my wife. You know what I mean? What would he have done to me if I startled him from 6 feet away in a blueberry patch? Would I still have my head on my shoulders? So who knows?
Yeah, it's a fascinating concept because certain primates, that's essentially what happens when the males become of age. They leave and go challenge
Yeah,
another, or they challenge the male and
and
then become the alpha themselves. So maybe that's the same thing happening here, where they're simply because the males are more aggressive because they're alphas. They're bred to be the aggressive ones.
then that does go on. Yeah, absolutely. I'm a firm believer in that. Absolutely,
What o-
absolutely.
what o- what other cryptids do you think are out there?
I think there's reptilian creatures out there. Um, Here we go. We're gonna think I'm crazy again, but I can send you video proof after the show. My wife and I were down at the trestle one night. We were on top of the train tracks, and we had some orbs come in. Okay, then they took off real fast. We heard bipedal footsteps walking in the water. We lit up the bottom of the bridge and just, there was nothing there. Nothing. But we started filming and she started taking snapshots. Well, we got home and we analyzed our footage, and I caught on video a tall, gray, reptilian-looking creature carrying a dead wild boar. And she caught it on still shot as well, and I'm going to send you those too, just so you don't think I'm nuts. But yeah, I will send you those as well. And why we didn't see it, I don't know. But we didn't see it. But the camera caught it. The camera caught it. Real long arms, 3 fingers, very ugly looking.
It's some kind of reptile. Perhaps it blends in a way the human eye doesn't easily discern.
That's a good thought. I never thought of that. That's a good thought. Like a chameleon.
Just like a chameleon blends in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't necessarily have the same flaws that our eyes have.
Right. I never thought about that. I always thought, I went to the cloaking theory, you know, that people talk about, you know, and I never thought about that though. That's a good thought.
Well, it's interesting that you say cloaking. Is it cloaking, or are they projecting? You know, because a lot of times you hear people talk about how they can communicate telepathically. Are they making you believe you don't see something, and that's why the camera saw it and you didn't?
True.
It was there. It would just convince you that you weren't seeing it, so you won't remember seeing it, but in fact you did.
Right. I mean, I think there's endless possible answers for the cryptozoology field, and you know, I've always asked myself, why is it that out of all the people in the world that have had encounters, there's people that see them in more than one place and see different entities. Why me? Why my wife? You know, or do they mark you and you have a marker on you and they know where you are? I don't know. I know that sounds like crazy talk, man, but I've thought about it for years, and I can't figure out what makes me so special that I've seen them in different places like that, in different entities. I don't know.
I mean, you mentioned that you had lost time at some of these encounters, so perhaps you were marked in some way that's
right,
not evident to us, or you know, not easily on the surface, anyways.
Right. Exactly.
Also, other than reptilians, what else do you think is out there?
I truly believe in the Thunderbird. You know, they talk, and there's a couple of different versions they talk about. One that looks like a pterosaur, and one that looks like a big eagle that's been sighted in Alaska. They that one story, that guy was running up a mountain. It was a popular hiking trail, or he was running down, and there was about 100-pound woman running up. He saw this big bird in the sky, and it swooped down. He said it had about a 15 to 20 foot wingspan. And when he should have passed that girl again, there was only one way up, one way down. She was gone. She was gone, and that's exactly where that bird was headed. So I've heard I don't know too much about the subject. I'm not gonna lie, but I do believe there could be a species of surviving something out there that's that bird or whatever that's that large. I mean, then a condor will stand 6 feet and have an 11-foot wingspan. Who's to say there isn't something a little bit larger?
That's very true.
You know?
That would certainly be the perfect home for something like that, where you've got a wilderness twice the size of the state of Texas.
Exactly.
Has never really been explored, at least not by us, by current civilization, anyways.
Right. Yep.
It really is a fascinating subject of what really could be out there that we're missing, and
exactly.
You know, there's so many interesting theories. It's so interesting. You can go any different way. Are these things coming in out of our dimension? Are they, you know, spiritual in some way? Or are they, you know, are we talking, you know, perhaps a dog man, some people say is demonic? You know, essentially they're hellhounds. I have no idea.
Right.
You know, I don't think so. I agree with you. I think that we've probably been here biologically all along. I suspect that they don't breed the same way we do.
Right.
That's why their numbers are smaller. Most animals don't, other than, well, rabbits and humans, but the bulk of animals don't reproduce as irresponsibly as we do. So
You're right. Absolutely right.
They don't have more offspring than the group can handle. Humans will just go as evidence of our population blowing up constant every year, getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But
exactly.
I would think Sasquatch is the same way, that they don't treat birth the same way we do. I think that they've probably evolved over time, because even though one of them could easily kill 2 or 3 of us, but what about 20, 30 of us? You know what I mean?
Right.
We have the numbers. They may have the superior physical capability, but we have the numbers. We're going to win.
Yeah.
And we've come a long way technologically speaking as well as the dominant species on the planet, at least as far as we know.
Yeah.
So I think there's all sorts of different reasons of why these things have biological explanations to be alongside us. Not to say that there isn't another explanation, that something else isn't going on.
Right.
We talked about earlier, when you do the research and the interviews and you talk to people and you constantly hear, well, there was something in the sky, there was an orb, there was a light, I lost time.
Yeah.
These things all overlap, and I talk to people who've been abducted by UFOs, UAPs, that kind of thing, and it's the exact same thing where they say, I lost time,
Sure.
And there was a weird noise, or I saw bright light, the eyes were glowing, things like that. And it just seems too much of a coincidence for people all over the country. And I've talked to some people in the UK and things like that who have similar stories. And I'm like, well,
sure.
It's hard to discern with the internet. You could read anything anywhere, maybe not intentionally, regurgitating. You have a memory and you're combining something you saw in a movie. But at the same time, if you go back through old newspapers and things like that, where they used to call people crazy for this kind of thing, they were seeing something, and it matches a lot of things what you're saying. People see glowing eyes. In Ohio, we have the Minerva monster, which is basically a Sasquatch, or the grass monster. And everyone we have orange eyes in Ohio. It's another version of a variation of a Sasquatch. And it's interesting because you go back, and I've traced some of these back to the mid 1800s. So there was no way that someone in Alaska was communicating instantly with someone in Ohio talking about a creature that's going to end up in a newspaper article in 1869 in Alaska, and a different article, complete but same topic, in 1870, 1869 here. How would you even get it here? There were no roads.
Exactly. Same
So
deal with the Native Americans. Same deal with the Native Americans. How come the Mohawks will describe this creature the same as the Apaches do? Meanwhile, back then they would have never had a chance to meet up with one another and share these stories.
No.
Back then.
No
way. No. So they were seeing something.
Well, because there's native tribes in, that were roughly up to the Georgia, Alabama, Florida area. Have similar stories to native tribes up in Alaska.
Yes.
My question is, how could they possibly have communicated 500 years ago? Someone in Florida would have no idea the kind of climate to get all the way to Alaska and then find your way back somehow. It's not like there was road maps. You know what I mean? It's not like you can write down mile markers or something, or even landmarks. How would you ever find your way back? It just is implausible. I'm not saying it's impossible,
but it's not possible.
I think it's extremely unlikely that all these different cultures across the U.S. and Canada, thousands of miles apart, in a time when the wilderness was everything. There was no civilization. The native populations lived with the land, so there was no roads, there was no nothing, there were no trails. For them all to have the same story. And then when the Europeans got here and started hearing these stories, and they saw cave drawings, like some of the ones out in California, and they say, well, that looks like some kind of primate. well, how would a Native American know what a primate looks like if allegedly there's never been a primate on this continent since
That's
humans have
right.
been here?
Yep.
So, but you know what I'm saying. But the Europeans instantly knew what they were describing. They knew what the drawings were.
Yep.
So, how would the natives have known that without having contact with one? Because they made things that they saw. Right? We see
Oh yeah.
carvings of wolves, bears, eagles, and then you see these
Eagles.
giant
Yeah.
ape-like creatures. And it's
Yeah.
why would it be the one thing they would make up? You know what I mean?
Exactly. They wouldn't. Yeah. There's just no way. No way. It's an interesting subject, man. It really is.
Yeah, it's a never-ending possibility.
It's a long
But,
rabbit hole, that's for sure.
we're coming up on about an hour and 20 here.
All right,
Go ahead
man.
and wrap it up. We definitely
Okay.
want to have you back sometime to talk more. If you
My
want to,
pleasure.
if you want to hang out backstage, I'd love to talk to you for a few more minutes.
Sure.
We're
Yeah.
gonna go and end everything here, and I'll be back to join you momentarily.
All right, man. Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming.
Now